Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Deceived Husbands for more stories.
We were having our usual family dinner at the kitchen table, just Maria and I, because our kids are grown and out of the house. The meal was a simple chicken stir-fry I made. I fixed dinner tonight because she had something going on at the gallery where she worked and was late getting home. Mariah's usually home before me, but not tonight. We decided long ago that a family dinner was important, not only for Maria and me, but also so we could spend quality time with our kids. I was about to refill my water glass when my 45-year-old wife mentioned something I didn't catch right away. I was distracted by my thoughts about an issue at the office and wasn't giving her my full attention. What she said didn't make sense, so I probably misunderstood her. I saw her gazing at me intently, waiting for my response. "What?" I asked. "I don't understand." "You're what?" Maria studied my face with a strange expression. "I've been seeing Eric," she said quickly. "You know, the new physical trainer at work." "Eric Johnson? I know you met him." "I know who Eric is," I replied, trying to make sense of this. Suddenly, I had a weird feeling in my stomach. "So, you're seeing him? What does that mean?" Maria took a deep breath. "We've become friends, Jack. I've been eating lunch with him, and after work lets out, I've been seeing him, meeting him, going out with him sometimes." "Seeing him? Going out with him?" I scoffed. "Christ, Maria, what are you telling me? You're having an affair?" It was a joke, and I waited impatiently for her to deny my outrageous remark. Instead, she watched me closely and stated, "Yes." "Yes?" I snickered and in disbelief blurted out, "Yes, what? You're having an affair?" "Yes, Jack. This can't be true." I started to speak, but nothing came out. "Please, just listen, Jack," she said quickly. "I'm sure this is a shock, and I know what you're thinking, but it's not like that. It's not a bad thing. Really, it's not. I just had to tell you about Eric because I do love and respect you. I always have." "Respect me? Love me?" I gasped. "How can you?" "It's true," she interrupted me. "You've always been my #1 guy. Getting married to you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you, and I'll never give you up. I love you so much. I just couldn't go on seeing him without saying something to you." My eyes locked onto her face, holding a shred of hope that this conversation was some kind of joke, maybe a setup or something. Maria loves me as much as I love her. She couldn't be having an affair. When she didn't retract her statement, I tried to figure out what the hell was going on. "I don't know what to say, Maria. I'm completely confused right now. Please don't feel bad, Jack," she pleaded. "Yes, I've been seeing Eric, but he's just a friend, and I certainly don't love him. Think about it, honey. My being with him hasn't affected our love and our relationship one bit." I ground my teeth, still reeling from this unexpected turn of events. "How can you say you love me?" "I do love you," she continued earnestly. "We have a great marriage, and I'll always treasure that. But I need to have other male friends too." "I've never complained about you having male friends," I countered. "I know that, and I appreciate it. And that's really all Eric is to me. I always love being with you, honey, but when I'm with Eric, it's different. He's a lot younger than us and thinks differently about things like this. I have to admit that sometimes he makes me feel like a teenager again." "Stop," I cried. I wanted to remain reasonable, but my self-control suddenly snapped. I had to interrupt her romantic story. "Please, spare me the details of your sordid affair. I don't want to hear how you feel with him or what you do behind my back." Maria saw the anger and spoke cautiously. "I'm sorry, honey. I know it's a sore subject right now, but I want to be truthful. Please don't hate me. Yes, I'm seeing Eric, but you don't have to worry about anyone knowing. We've been very discreet, so no one knows. We both made sure of that. I'm sure you never suspected anything, and no one else does either. That's supposed to make me feel better? I guess not. I just wanted you to know we aren't disrespecting you in public, just in private," I thought to myself. "Please believe me, Jack. Eric will never take your place. He's just a fun young guy for me to hang around with for a willy, a guy that gets something from me that you never missed. He'll always put you first in everything, and please believe that I never meant to hurt you. I just couldn't keep hiding it from you. Being with Eric is just a small favor I need you to allow me." I was seething at her casual attitude. Just a fun guy? A favor? She gives him something that he'll never miss? My face was flushed with anger, and my eyes glared at her. I tried to lash out verbally at her. You? You sorry, selfish, conniving. I sputtered furiously before I could stop myself. You damn cheating, cold-hearted. How could you? She let me finish my rant and said, I guess I deserve that. I couldn't take any more right now. I jumped up so fast the chair I was sitting on fell over backward. I spun around and marched angrily out of the room, my water forgotten. Where are you going, Jack? Maria cried. Don't go, please. I need a minute to process this. I snapped back at her. Give me a few minutes, and you'll be back. I charged out the back door as she whimpered. Okay, my love. I stomped out onto the spacious deck in the back of our house, red-faced and breathing heavily. An affair? She's cheating? I was furious at the disrespect she was showing me. I pounded the railing in frustration before trying to calm down. I'm usually pretty even-tempered, but tonight, listening to my wife's confession about her adultery, I was losing control. For years, the ability to remain stoic and in control of my emotions has served me well as a manager. Many times, when speaking with a stressed colleague, my patient, cool-headed approach calmed them down and helped me figure a way out of their problem. Unfortunately, this was different because it was personal. I couldn't believe my middle-aged wife. We've been married for over 18 years, and now she tells me she's in an affair with a young guy she works with. Yeah, I've met that jerk. I thought he was just a friend of hers when I met him at some work function a while ago. Maria introduced him as a friendly acquaintance, and I stupidly believed her. Now I know different. My frazzled mind was spinning with disturbing images of what I had just heard. I took some deep breaths and tried to calm down. I had to think, and I couldn't do that if I was distraught. Bursting back into the kitchen screaming at her would only turn our discussion into a bitter shouting match. Cursing her out might make me feel good at first, but in the long run, it would be counterproductive. Screaming and yelling has never been my style anyway. If I know Maria, yelling and cursing would just make my stubborn wife harden her position. It would give me no information to figure a way to get her to stop. No, I had to approach this issue using all of my faculties. I had to force myself to revert to my objective, unemotional management persona. I need information about her affair so I can objectively analyze the data. It took another 10 minutes for my blood pressure to slow down. When my heart stopped racing and I was breathing normally again, I went back inside the house to confront my unfaithful wife. Maria was still at the kitchen table, fidgeting nervously with her water glass. She glanced up as I entered with a worried, tentative look on her face. She waited for me to sit back down and started to speak. I put up my hand to cut her off. Wait a second, let's start this over, I said in an even tone. Needless to say, my love, I never expected this tonight. I have to say, Maria, I'm completely amazed and pretty upset right now. Oh, Jack, you don't have to be. I put my hand up again to stop her. Hold it. So, what's your plan now? I guess you want me to forgive and forget? Is that it? Maria, you've been seeing a guy at work behind my back, and am supposed to just forgive you? Well, not exactly, she said, looking uneasy. I knew you'd be upset. I can't blame you for that. I just wanted you to know what was going on. I mean, I didn't want to keep you in the dark anymore. I cursed before I could stop. So, what did that creep say when you told him you were going to clue me in? Well, he thought, we both thought it's for the best, Jack. That's what he said? Not exactly. Despite what you think, Eric's not a bad guy. I know he feels bad about us sneaking around. We both do, really. Yes, he doesn't want to screw up our marriage, and neither do I. I was going to challenge her to end her affair when she drove the knife in deeper. With a resolute look, she sighed. This is hard, but now that you know what's going on, I want to keep seeing him. Not too often, mind you, just now and then, and of course after work hours. I gasped at the gall of this woman and snorted. Oh, of course. I was speechless, and maybe she was too. Neither one of us spoke, we just sat there looking at each other. The atmosphere was incredibly tense for a while before my wife sighed with a pained look. I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is hard for you, but he's really a nice guy. We connected on some level and have a lot of fun together. I admit that I'm into him, but it won't affect us one bit. You've got to be kidding. No, I'm not. Me seeing him won't change anything between us. It hasn't yet, and I'm going to make sure it won't in the future. You probably don't agree, but he's been a good friend for me. It might not seem to you right now, but I think he's been good for our marriage too. Really? You're insane. Just try to think logically, Jack. Have you noticed how happy I've been lately? You remember accusing me of being bitter last year? Well, I admit I was. We were arguing, our marriage was tense, and our love life was growing a little stale. We were in a rut when I first started seeing him. What a great story. I guess he's a marriage counselor too. She ignored my sarcasm. Since we became friends, Eric helped me straighten out my attitude. I appreciate it, and I know you do too. I guess we're more than just friends now. I don't need to see him often, just occasionally when you're busy. I know we can work this out, Jack. I love you. I want to grow old with you and be with you forever. You have to know that. I could hardly believe the words I was hearing. So you're not ending the affair? You're asking me to accept that you're going to keep him? Of course it will end, darling. Eventually, she assured me. We get along right now, but he's a lot younger than me. We're from different generations, and we both have very different interests. Eric and I could never have the type of long-term committed relationship we have. At some point, our mutual feelings for each other will just fizzle out, just not right now. You're really out of your mind. Please, Jack, you have to believe me. I promise you nothing between us will change in the slightest. She patted me on the wrist like a good boy. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll still carry on our loving relationship. I adore making love to you, and always will. For the past few months, you haven't noticed anything different, have you? I hated to admit it, but she was right. I never suspected the reason why our relationship had become so sexual lately. When we first started dating, Maria and I had a very active love life. Over the years, we were just as loving, but as the kids got older and needed us to accommodate their busy lifestyle, our love life slowed down quite a bit. Even after they left for college, we never got back to the frequency it was before. I didn't see it as a problem, though. I assumed most married couples our age didn't tear up the sheets every night. But with my new knowledge, I realized Maria was right. We had gotten back on track. I couldn't deny I was elated that we were now intimate several times a week, if not more. It was the same frequency we enjoyed when the kids were younger. When she asked if I had noticed any negative effect on our love life while she was seeing Eric, the truth is I didn't. When I didn't answer her, she answered for me. Of course not, she said confidently. Despite seeing Eric from time to time, I made sure I was always there for you. You have to admit we make love a lot for people our age, and I love it as much as you do. I'm here for you anytime you need me. We both love each other. I know that. When I'm with you, Eric never gets in the picture. He's only a tiny part of my life. We have a stable 18-year marriage, and I want to continue that. I asked incredulously, of course, I love you, but how can I stay married to a cheating woman like you? She didn't like that. She frowned, and her sympathetic expression hardened. I'm not a cheater, she stated categorically through tight lips. I'm surprised you'd insult me like that. This is the first time I've ever cheated on you, and just so you know, I've never been with a man I didn't have feelings for. So you have feelings for him? I exclaimed. That's just wonderful. How do I know you haven't just replaced me with a younger model, that you're just waiting to see how things work out with Eric, keeping me as a backup? It's not like that at all, Jack, she insisted. You're my husband, and I do love you, honey. I'll never leave you. It's just that once in a while, I want to be with Eric, not all the time, mind you, and not forever, just until I get this weird urge out of my system. That's all I'm asking, just a little time to do something you'll never have to worry about. It won't affect us, just like it hasn't for the past few months. I sat there for a few painful minutes as my naive, brain-dead wife babbled on. I couldn't believe she'd think our relationship wouldn't change now that I knew she was a cheating wife. It already had. My mind was racing with disturbing images of what she and that jerk were doing every time she wasn't home. After a while, my brain came back to reality, and I listened as she kept justifying her sordid affair. It'll be better for us in the long run, Jack. I've been so much more relaxed and positive lately and uninhibited in the bedroom. She giggled. You must have noticed how much better our love life has been. I haven't turned you down once, and I don't plan to. I've also allowed you some extra things that you've wanted to do for years. Well, I'll let you do anything you want now. Since I've been with Eric, I've been able to express the physical side of myself fully. No more hang-ups about anything. You must have noticed. Don't you feel that's true, Jack? She's right again. I did notice, and it pissed me off. Our love life used to be pretty conservative. We did enjoy a few different things. I wasn't complaining. Mariah's a lovely woman and a generous partner. We both got what we needed, and I was certainly satisfied. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice that Maria had turned into a dynamo in the bedroom the last few months. I thought it was because the kids weren't around, or maybe something hormonal. Maybe I'd become a better partner. Now I realized it was her time with that young guy from work that was firing her up. Funny how she thought the truth would excite me when actually it was very depressing. I always felt lucky to marry her. When we met, Maria was a single woman a few years older than me with 2 young children. I was attracted to her, and we got along fine right from the start. It was her second marriage and my first. I know I was happy to be in a relationship with such a charming, intelligent woman. My coworkers used to joke about me marrying an older woman, but I loved her and her kids and never worried about that. Her first husband was a deadbeat who had left her soon after they had their second child. When we married, I adopted them and raised her kids as my own. While I wasn't their biological father, I was the only dad they'd ever known. They both have grown into respectable young people, and I'm proud of them. Now, after 18 years of marriage, she drops this on me. Say something, Jack, she urged, studying my face. I know you're upset, and you might feel hurt. I don't want you to. I want to help make this as easy as I can. I know you still care for me, and I know you have needs. Let me help you feel better, honey. You'll always be my number one. She rose from her seat, flashed a suggestive smirk, and came toward me, swaying her hips in a manner that usually turned me on. Please don't worry about anything. I'm here for you. Let me know how to help you, baby. I'm sure we can think of something. When she started to sit on my lap, I shoved her away. She gave me a hurt look, but didn't push it. Without warning, I got up and bolted from the room. It caught her by surprise, and she barely had time to call out, "Wait," before I was out the door and into my car. As I drove off, I saw her at the doorway with her hands covering her face. I had to get out before I did something I'd regret. It was 10 minutes before I realized I was just driving around in circles. I thought about doing the usual angry, bitter spouse thing, heading to a bar and getting drunk. There was a small local bar at the next corner, so I parked in front, went in, and sat down. I ordered a drink and just tried to clear my head. I decided to gather all the information tonight. Maybe it will help me with my future decision. Later, I drove back home with a purpose. When I came back in the door, Maria was talking on her cell phone. She looked surprised to see me and whispered urgently into her phone when she saw me enter the room. "I have to go," she whispered. "No, I can't. He's back. Bye." By the tense look on her face, I suspected she was speaking to her boyfriend. It galled me, but I forced myself to remain calm and resolute. I needed to do what that smart bartender told me. I returned to my seat. The cold coffee cup was still there. Maria sat across from me with a serious look on her face. "Jack," she started to say before I cut her off. "Hold it. Let me speak. I'm not sure I want to hear, but I think I have to know how your affair got started. I hope it will somehow help me deal with it." With a grim look, I asked her, "So how long, Maria? How long have you been betraying me?" Maria let out a sigh. Right to the point, she must have thought. "Not too long," she admitted. "We've been friends for a while. It didn't turn physical until a few months ago." She let me know how his words made her feel special and how it helped her explore her feelings. She let out a deep breath as if telling me this story was a big load off her mind. "So where do we go from here?" I asked. "You just admitted to lying and cheating on me for months. How do you think I feel? My cheating wife is with some young guy not much older than our kids, and I never knew a thing. You expect me to congratulate you for being so clever?" "No, not at all, Jack." She reached across the table and held my hand. I tensed up but didn't pull away. No matter how devastated I was, I still loved her. "Please understand I'm very ashamed for deceiving you," she said. "I hate the fact that I let you down. I know you never knew about Eric because we've been very discreet about our relationship. I didn't want you to know about us. I was so ashamed of what I was doing and nervous you'd suspect something. The first few times I came home after meeting him, I felt terrible and vowed it would never happen again. Eric was very supportive of my situation. He never pressured me to continue. He left it up to me. He was happy to just see me occasionally. We both agreed that we didn't want to mess up my marriage. I guess that changed, I said, pulling my hand from hers and glaring at her. No matter how badly I behaved, I know I love you. Eric's a good guy, and he'll be a great catch for a lucky girl someday, but he can never take your place. I told him all the time that we'd never be more than friends with benefits, and he agreed with that. He said he was very fond of me but felt the same way. As long as we didn't raise any suspicions at work, I knew I could probably go on having a relationship with him and no one would know. However, completely avoiding him when our coworkers knew we were friends would raise questions I didn't want to answer. So, we still had lunch once in a while to appear normal, but we never let on that we were anything more than friends. Helen and other colleagues even joined us sometimes at lunch. I know they never suspected anything. I'm sure you were one clever liar, I spat out, losing my cool for a moment. Maria flashed me a sad look and nodded her head. Yeah, I was clever, all right. On the surface, I was a faithful wife with a great job, lots of friends, and a good traditional marriage. Inside, I knew it was a lie. The problem I couldn't avoid was my conscience. I always considered myself an honest person and a good wife. My bad behavior undermined that image. Deep down, I began to hate myself for deceiving you. Our marriage is precious to me and has always been the most important part of my life. What I had with Eric was just a temporary situation. I do care about him, but my feelings toward him are just a shadow of what I feel for you. My lack of integrity began to bother me to the point where I was becoming jaded about my life. Despite how I handled things, I was losing my virtuous self-image. I have become someone I didn't like. The answer to that is just to stop cheating. Yes, that's probably true, but I'm not sure I can right now. With harsh honesty, Maria admitted. I'd like to think I could just drop Eric and things between us would just go back to normal, Jack, but truthfully, I doubt that. Why? I shot back, unable to remain passive. You said yourself we're happy together. We've raised 2 great kids and have gone through some of the hardest parts of married life. We both have great jobs and have built a life together. With Laura and Peter out of the house, we now have a chance to enjoy our time together in a way that we haven't been able to before. If you love me like you say, coming back to be my faithful wife and giving up that jerk should not be an issue. She exhaled hard and shot me a look of concern. It probably would have been at first. Now I'm not so sure. Of course, I love you like no other, Jack. But for the past few months, I've seen another side of life and learned a lot about myself and my needs. I'm not sure I can, even if I want to, just go back to the way I was. I've tried to be the same loving wife to you that I've always been, but being with Eric has opened my eyes to, well, other options. I angrily pulled my hand from hers. I tried to remain calm, but I couldn't. Other options? Huh? I spat. You can't stop seeing him, is that it? You're too in love with his youth? I was good enough to marry and support you and your kids all these years, but some young stud comes along later in life, and am not good enough anymore? It's not that, honey. Don't ever think that, she declared. I've always said you're the best husband and father I could have asked for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed. We both have. Neither one of us is the same as when we first married. It's not a bad thing, it's just the natural progression of 2 people who've lived together for many years. I glared at her, unable to speak without losing control. When she saw I wasn't speaking, Maria said, I don't want to hurt you, Jack. I really don't. I know you may not believe that right now, but it's true. We are going to be together, and nothing will change between us. I'll make sure of that. Despite feeling bad for your feelings, I'm not unhappy with my life right now. I have a wonderful husband who I love very much, 2 wonderful kids who love and respect you. I just have a male friend I see occasionally for fun and excitement, a nice young guy that I like who makes me feel things I haven't felt since I was a teenager. I hope you can understand how I feel and that you love me enough to allow me this favor. You, I whispered under my breath. You. If she heard me, she didn't say anything. She just kept talking. It's not a bad thing, Jack. Just remember, I'm always there for you. You can always count on me. But I'd like things to remain the way they are for a while longer. Not forever, just until I finish exploring these new experiences. Then he'll end it with Eric and go back to being yours exclusively. That's what I want for us. Just give me a little time to settle down. I hope you can appreciate how honest I am. I don't want any more secrets. If you allow me this liberty, I promise I'll make it up to you. You'll never want for anything, darling. You'll always be a good wife. No one will ever know about the tiny bit of time I spend away from you. Just give me a little support on this one issue, and it'll reward you for the rest of your life. This conversation was getting worse by the minute. When she first laid out her affair on me, I was caught off guard. We started our regular dinner-time chat with me feeling great about my marriage. In a few short minutes, I'd gone from being a happy husband to a depressed cuckold. My formerly loving wife now has a lover who is younger and no doubt more virile than me. It took me a few minutes to regain my bearings. This was a lot to contend with. I thought I could convince her to listen to reason and end this affair. Now it was clear she had no intention of ending it. She just needed my cooperation to allow her to continue to explore her feelings. This was cheating at the highest level. You've been lying for months. In fact, you're so good at lying I never suspected anything. Now you admit to all the lies and the cheating and promise to keep me as your husband. But don't you see the problem with that? Now that I know you've lied repeatedly, and not just to me but to our kids, our friends, and everyone else we know, how the hell can I ever trust you again? How do I know you're not just going to change your mind about Eric or some other guy you meet sometime in the future and replace me with a younger model? Maria snorted in frustration because she knew I had a point, and it hit the nail on the head. No matter what she said, she was now a verified liar. Nothing she said could be trusted. She looked back at me, and her eyes were watery like she wanted to dispute my claim but knew I was telling the truth. I would never do that, and you know it. She finally told me. You have a lot of nerve, I told her bitterly, acting all entitled and arrogant, throwing your affair in my face. Why shouldn't I just get rid of you? I don't want a cheating wife. I never did. I should just divorce your sorry ass and be done with you. If I thought those bitter words would sting, I was mistaken. Mariah's expression softened, and she looked at me with unexpected compassion. When she spoke, there was an edge to her tone she hadn't used before. I know this is difficult right now, she answered, trying not to appear smug. But divorce? I doubt that would be in your best interest, Jack. Why? At least I could keep my pride. Her look of pity was infuriating. A divorce would hurt me badly, and you too, honey. At least I wouldn't have to put up with your affair any longer. That may be true, she shrugged indifferently, but I don't think you'd be happy getting a divorce. Neither of us would. Her eyes locked onto my face. In a sharper tone, she explained, to start with, as you know, we live in a no-fault state. They'll probably end up with half of everything, including the house, the savings, and our retirement fund. Because you adopted Laura and Peter, you'll be required to contribute to their college education. There's also alimony. Since I don't make half what you do on my salary from the gallery, the court will expect you to support me in a reasonable manner. It could come to quite a tidy sum. I guess she and her young lover have this all worked out. So you'd clean me out in the divorce? It was a statement. I certainly don't want to, she informed me. I'd never want to do that. I want to keep living with you and loving you the same as always. But if you left me in a divorce, you'd be on the hook for quite a bit of money. Of course, I'd still be free to see Eric anytime I want, which I know would be uncomfortable for you. It's much better if we just keep on like we have been. We'll remain married and live our wonderful life. You'll still have me as your loving wife, and we can have great times whenever you want. No one will ever know the difference. They'll always keep you my number one guy. Then she added in a sympathetic tone, they'll always be grateful for your open-mindedness about this, and they'll give you anything you want. I just want some time with Eric, not a lot, just a bit. The rest of the time, they'll keep making you happy. I was happy before you laid this on me, I said bitterly. Now I know I'm just a stupid cuckold for my faithless wife, and that jerk you work with. It's not like that, Jack. I began to walk away, and she called out, wait, don't go, honey. We have to discuss this some more. Please. There's nothing to discuss, Maria. You've issued your ultimatum. Now I have to decide if I want to accept it. There's nothing for you to worry about, she cried. Nothing will change between us, you'll see. I don't want you to think about anything other than I love you. So much for allowing me this freedom. They'll do anything to make you happy. Then end your affair right now. She took a frustrated breath, looked down and whispered, I can't do that just yet, honey. I can't stop right now. Then there's nothing more to talk about. This conversation is over. I've heard all I can stand. You told me how you feel, and nothing I say will convince you otherwise. At the same time, you'll never be able to believe anything you say again. I give up trying to talk sense to a liar and a cheat. I went into the den and turned on the TV. I didn't care what was on. I was still in a daze from the difficult conversation. I thought about going to a hotel and staying away without telling her. I was so angry I wanted to hurt her the way she hurt me. But I knew leaving home and getting drunk was not my style. I guess I'm too rational or boring to do anything rash. I was numb and tired. It felt like a nightmare. How could she do this to me? I watched TV for another hour or so. There was a game on, but I couldn't tell you one thing about it. I heard Maria leave the kitchen at some point. The sliding glass doors opened and closed when she went out on the back deck. I guess she was calling someone and needed privacy, probably that jerk, to let him know how our conversation went. She came in quite a while later and entered the den. I was on the recliner, so she couldn't sit next to me. She did move close and watched me for a while. Are you all right, Jack? She asked sweetly. I know this was a lot to accept, honey, and I want to help you. I glanced over and saw her flash me a weird smile. You want to talk some more, or do you want to go to bed? She asked. You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really want to. I was disgusted, offering me pity and intimacy to console my hurt feelings. How cliché. The whole idea pissed me off. I just ignored her offer and went upstairs to bed. I was furious with my wife and thought about sleeping in the guest room, but decided she was the one at fault. So why should I leave my room? I undressed in record time and jumped into bed. A few minutes later, Maria entered the room. She saw I was already under the covers, so she went to our private bathroom and changed into a nightgown she knew I liked. She turned off the light, slid under the covers without a word, and began sliding toward me. I now knew she was unfaithful and had no intention of touching her. I turned on my side away from her and hoped she'd get the message. Instead, she moved closer, tried to spoon me, and reached for my chest to turn me to her side. I pushed her hand away. Like to fool around. Honey? She whispered softly. Suddenly, an image appeared in my head. It was a revolting image of my slender 45-year-old wife on Eric's bed. She was lying on her back, getting attention from him. I imagined her grabbing him and smiling at him as he took what was exclusively mine. Without moving, I pulled her hand off me and said, never again. But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted to. I flipped over and glared at her. She was startled by my angry expression and drew back from me. Even in the dark, I'm sure she could sense my bitterness. Of course I'm upset. Damn it. I spit out. I just found out I've been deceived for months. If you need company so bad, go call Eric. I'm sure your young friend can take care of you. Maria was flabbergasted. I don't think she expected me to reject her like this. I glared at her for a few moments, then spun back on my side, facing the wall. Maria didn't say a word and didn't bother me anymore. I had a lot of trouble getting to sleep, and I know she did too. The next morning, I was up before the alarm went off. I barely slept and was still bitter as hell at the conversation last night. Maria was in bed, but she wasn't asleep. I took a quick shower, and when I came out, she had already left the bedroom. Maria had to be at work an hour before I did. I've always been an early riser. Even though I didn't have to go in early, I was usually up before her and sometimes even fixed breakfast. Not anymore. That was before I knew she was seeing that guy. I dressed and cleaned up in record time. When I left the room, I saw her downstairs fixing breakfast in the kitchen for a change. Good morning, Jack, she called out sweetly. There's bacon and eggs for you and some toast. You want some coffee too, dear? I ignored her greeting and her offers. Without even looking in her direction, I just walked out of the house. Jack, wait, please. I heard her call out as I slammed the door, got in my car, and zoomed off down the street. At work, I tried to forget about my problems, but I kept thinking about her and that young guy and couldn't concentrate throughout the day. I got several calls from Maria. I didn't answer, and her messages went to voicemail. I didn't bother listening to them and just deleted them. She sent Me a few cute texts. I glanced at them and deleted them too. With her texts and calls, I couldn't get her out of my mind. I made several simple mistakes in some of the work I was reviewing and finally decided to take the afternoon off. I called up a lawyer for a consultation. He was an older guy and took me in right away. It seemed what Maria told me about divorce was true. I would be screwed emotionally and financially while she'd come out well off with a young lover to entertain. I'd be financially strapped supporting her, and since I never cheated, I didn't have a girlfriend to soothe my heartache. I'd end up rather poor and alone, maybe in a small one-bedroom apartment. Not a pretty picture. If I stayed with her, it wasn't much better. Sure, I'd get physical attention, she made sure to emphasize that. But it would be hollow and pity-driven. It was clear this younger guy rang her bell in a way I never could at my age. There was no way I could compete in that area with a fit, younger man. Also, if I stayed in the marriage and ignored her cheating, to the court it meant I was sanctioning her affair. They'd assume I was okay with a cheating wife, and I could never claim adultery in a divorce proceeding. Even more daunting was trying to fight fire with fire, basically remain married, and have my own affair in a relationship contest with my wife. I'd lose every time. There were plenty of guys who wanted to be with her, even guys as young as her kids. Eric was proof of that. At 45 years old, Mariah's still fairly attractive with short dark hair, a trim body, and a pleasant personality. I'm an average-looking older guy with a slightly receding hairline and holding a little too much weight. I have a good job and am okay looking for my age, but I don't know how many women want an older middle-class married boyfriend. Not many, I guess. The contrast between our dating prospects was depressing. She was still attractive, and I was not. After a frustrating day in the office, I went to the bar for dinner. I stayed away as late as I could. Unfortunately, I never got into the bar scene, and it was boring being by myself. I wanted to be home with my wife, sipping a beer and relaxing by the TV, not dousing my sorrows alone in a bar, gulping alcohol, surrounded by a bunch of lonely guys like me. When I got home, Maria was already in bed. It wasn't that late, but I guess she just gave up on me getting home. Not that I cared. I woke up early after another difficult sleep. I left the house at dawn and went to a diner for breakfast. I drove around and did some window shopping, basically wasting as much time as I could. Then I went back home wondering if my unfaithful wife was there or out with that young man. It turned out she was home. She must have heard my car pull up because when I got to the door, she opened it and welcomed me with a smile. When she tried to kiss me, I turned my head so she hit my cheek. She looked surprised when I pulled away from her embrace and moved past her. I went into the den for a while to keep away from her. Later when I came out, I found her in the kitchen. I went in to get a beer, then I went to the living room and turned on the TV. She showed up a few minutes later with a glass of wine. "Mind if I join you?" Maria asked pleasantly. I noticed she had changed. She was now wearing a thin tank top that fit tight to her and left her arms and shoulders bare. She also was wearing a pair of tight, skimpy shorts. I couldn't miss the scent of her spicy perfume. "Suit yourself." I was sitting on the sofa. This time I moved to the side, giving her the rest of the sofa. She made it a point to sit right next to me. During the TV show, Maria grew more amorous. I knew the wine had her a little high, maybe even a little amorous. She certainly wasn't drunk. When her head moved close to my neck, I picked that exact moment to say, "I need to use the bathroom." I politely moved her back, got up, and walked away. As I left the room, I saw her look at me funny because I almost never failed to respond to her advances. I finished up in the bathroom, but instead of going back to the living room, I went into the kitchen. "You coming back?" she asked. "This show is getting good." "Not right now." I purposely stayed in the kitchen for a while. When I thought it was long enough, I left the kitchen with a beer and went straight into the den, shutting the door behind me. As expected, Maria opened the door a few minutes later. "What you doing?" she asked with a smile. "Just some stuff I need to get caught up on." "You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not." "Oh, okay." She was still standing there as I kept my attention on the computer. When I didn't look at her, I could almost sense her frustration. I knew she was puzzled. After such a nice dinner, I'm sure she hoped there'd be a thawing in the atmosphere. A minute or so later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you looking at now?" she asked, glancing at the computer screen and pretending to show interest. I had pulled up some paperwork from an account I was working on. It was a complicated financial spreadsheet, so I knew she wouldn't know what it was. I got kind of busy on Friday and didn't finish this, I told her. I didn't think you'd mind if I missed the show. Oh, of course not. I shivered when she began rubbing my neck. She knew I liked having my head and neck rubbed, and she made the massage as suggestive as she could. Her hands were moving around my neck, scratching my head a bit. I could smell the alcohol on her breath when she leaned down and kissed my head lovingly. I just ignored her. It took 10 more minutes for her to get the hint that I wasn't interested. Finally, she just walked away and went back to the living room. Could you shut the door, please? Okay, she said as she pulled it closed behind her. I breathed a sigh of relief. After being my soul partner for so long, Maria still turns me on a lot. All the things she was doing were designed to get me interested, and it was working. But I was determined to remain disinterested in her charms. I had no intention of sharing them with another guy. It took me 3 hours to finish the work. When I went upstairs to bed, I found her asleep. She was wearing a very revealing nightie with matching lingerie. I guess she wanted to seduce me in that skimpy outfit. It sure would have whetted my appetite for affection. She planned to surprise me but grew tired from the wine and fell asleep. Sunday morning, I got up before Maria and once again ignored her all day. On Monday, her car didn't start, and I had to drop her at work. She asked me to pick her up as well. Later during the day, I got half a dozen calls from Maria. I knew she was desperate to tell me that she'd get a ride home, no doubt from her boyfriend. I just ignored them. I made sure to leave work early and got to her workplace before her last shift let out. I waited for the people to leave the building. When I showed up in her workplace, she was quite surprised and not too happy. Hey, honey, ready to go home? I chirped happily. She leveled a harsh glare at me. I called you all day, Jack. Why didn't you call me back? Sorry, I was pretty busy today. I wanted to tell you I've already arranged a ride home. Oh, really? Well, no matter. I'm here now, so let's go. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair breezed into the room. He moved easily toward my wife like he expected her to come over and kiss him. Of course, I recognized him right away. It was her boyfriend, Eric. I'd seen him before, but I didn't take note of him that much then. A few feet away, he looked even younger than I remembered him, more like a college frat boy than an adult. He had on sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt, which displayed his muscular arms and legs. He's an ass, but he was good-looking and did appear to be in great shape. I could see why Maria was attracted to him. Maria's eyes widened when he arrived. Eric looked a little confused. Oh, Eric, she sputtered. I was just telling Jack that she already has a ride home, I said, completing her sentence. I kept my cool because I knew there was a possibility he'd be there. He looked surprised to see me. When he recognized me, he smiled annoyingly and glanced from me to my wife. Oh, hello, he said, extending his hand. I'm Eric Johnson. I ignored it and replied coolly, yeah, I know who you are. Trying to diffuse the tension, Maria squeaked, Eric, this is Jack, my husband. I think you met him once. The young man's confused expression softened a bit as he remembered me. Oh, that's right. Yes, Jack. I remember you. Nice to see you again. I'm sure it is. I remember we met at the company event a few months ago. I've heard a lot of good things about you from Maria. She holds you in high regard. Not high enough, I guess, I replied with an edge. I glanced wearily at my wife. She looked like she was holding her breath. Maria, let's get out of here, I said, wrinkling my nose as if the smell bothered me. She began to gather her things as Eric turned to me. Excuse me for asking, but is everything okay? Eric inquired, clearly sensing the tension in the room. Everything is just fine, I replied tersely, my eyes fixed on Maria as she hurriedly grabbed her belongings. We're just heading home. Maria looked at Eric, then back at me. She gave a small, strained smile. Thanks for offering to give me a ride, Eric, but I'll go with Jack. Sure, no problem, Eric said, though he didn't sound convinced. He gave a small nod and left, leaving Maria and me alone. The drive home was silent. Maria kept glancing at me, probably trying to gauge my mood, but I didn't give her anything to work with. My mind was racing with thoughts of what to do next. When we got home, I didn't wait for her to get out of the car before I headed inside. She followed me, her steps quickening to keep up. "Jack, we need to talk," she said as soon as we were inside. "No, Maria," I said, turning to face her. "I've heard enough. You made your bed, now you lie in it." "But Jack, please, just listen." "I don't need to listen to more excuses," I interrupted. "I've heard enough of your lies and justifications. You think you can have your cake and eat it too, but that's not how this works." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Jack, I love you. I don't want to lose you." "Funny way of showing it," I retorted. "You said you needed time to explore your feelings. Well, now it's my turn." "Jack, please don't do this," she begged, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm done, Maria," I said firmly. "I can't stay married to someone who disrespects me like this. I'm moving out." Her eyes widened in shock. "What? You can't just leave." "Watch me," I said, turning away from her. I went upstairs and started packing a bag. She followed me, still pleading and crying, but I ignored her. I packed enough clothes for a few days and grabbed my essentials. When I was done, I headed back downstairs, Maria trailing behind me. "Jack, please," she sobbed. "We can work this out. I promise I'll stop seeing Eric." "It's too late for that," I said coldly. "You've already shown me who you really are." I left the house, slamming the door behind me. I got in my car and drove away, not looking back. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere was better than staying with a cheating wife. I checked into a hotel and spent the next few days figuring out my next steps. I contacted a lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. I also looked into finding a new place to live. It was a painful and difficult time, but I knew it was the right decision. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. Maria called and texted me constantly, but I ignored her. I needed space to heal and move on. I knew it would take time, but I was determined to rebuild my life without her. I deserved better than a wife who would cheat on me and expect me to accept it. I deserved someone who would love and respect me, and I was going to find that person. As the days turned into weeks, I focused on myself and my future. I reconnected with old friends, picked up new hobbies, and started to feel like myself again. The pain of Mariah's betrayal was still there, but it was becoming a part of my past, not my present. In the end, I realized that staying with Maria would have only prolonged the hurt and resentment. Leaving her was the best decision I could have made. I was moving forward, and I was determined to create a new, happier life for myself. Thanks for watching this intense story of betrayal and tough decisions. What would you do if you discovered your spouse was living a double life? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping real-life stories. See you in the next video.